neither you or I would be in a real TV studio because we do touch our hair and things,
Yeah,
Yeah, that was deliberate.
I remember when COVID started and we were in that studio down on Queen Street. My face was so itchy all the time. There was something in there. I don't know what it was.
Yep.
But I was just
scratching
my face.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember. I think it was Phil Coco made comments of it because it was in the midst of COVID and you're not supposed to touch things and touch your face. Remember those early precautions?
Early days when we didn't know what the hell was anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Vince Kerrio has agreed to replace Campbell, as we kind of knew he would. It's not exactly what you would call a hard decision, I think, on his part, right?
Yes, I think, well, he did say in the article that about a year and a half ago, he may not have considered it.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty busy with all this other stuff. He's winding down. He's selling a lot of his assets, evidently. He's helping his wife around the farm, he says. But I don't know. Probably he could do us a favor by really avoiding a by-election. We seriously don't need to.
Well, there's plenty of other people who would take that on for the next 2 years anyway. I'm sure that they go to the next one, they'll happily agree.
But it's important to know that him and Dabrowski's were not the people's choice.
Yeah,
and they were not the people's choice. They did not make enough votes to become councillors, and I don't think I do have questions of going past. Dabrowski was the first one. Now this is the second one. If we have a third one, we're going to have an election because it's just too far down the row of vote.
What you're basically, not that I don't think we have any ailing councillors right now, but I know you never know what tomorrow might bring, and I wouldn't wish anybody ill health. But yeah, had for example Ruth N. Neustadt won the regional vote, the provincial vote, then we'd have needed an election, I guess, for 2, wouldn't we?
Yeah, Ruth N. No, that's it. And then you start going too far down the poll. Right?
Yeah,
you too far down the list of where people were not elected. If you can't make it into the top 8 or whatever, we have 8 councillors, right? If you can't make it into the top 8, then 1 or 2 others along the line maybe, but I don't think where are you going to go next? You're going to go to somebody to get 200 votes? Something like that.
Well, yeah, but again, in that could happen. You could end up in a ward system whereby the first 2, let's say, get 1,500 votes each, and the third one is the person who got 200. Yeah.
Well, isn't that how Peter Angelo got in originally in the ward system? He got about 150 votes or something like that.
Yeah. Good luck to him. He did, he did that.
Well, and Iannone too. Iannone was got the second most votes in her particular ward, but the guy, I think it was Pat Cummings. He was the guy who was there before her, and he got a large amount more votes than she did, but she came in second place. So there are opportunities that pop up, but realistically, I think if we go any further down the line, we should actually do have a by-election.
Yeah, I wouldn't stand in a by-election, but yeah. All right, morning.
Anyway, as it is, Vince is going to. I don't know if he's going to run for office, run councillor thereafter.
Well, he was talking in 22 about retiring. He didn't put his nomination papers in till the last day. And he had made some comments about
that's right. Yeah. So in the meantime, he saves us the cost. He's an experienced counselor. Both
Yeah,
Dabrowski and him are experienced counselors. He's very experienced, Kerrio.
yeah,
Although he's kind of a one-sided counselor. He'll line up with Peter Angelo and Diodati and Strange, and they're going to be pretty hard block to overcome. They are the so-called old boys club. So we'll see. We'll see.
yeah.
Lori Lococo will be alone. She will be a voice in the wilderness. Warrior lady. Everybody else is just trying to like.
But she's a strong voice anyway. You know that.
Yes, yes.
So,
But
good
it's
morning to Chris.
frustrating for her.
Good morning to Chris Simone. Good morning to Steve McEachran, Scott McEachran, and good morning to Mike Cushman.
Metaphysical Mike.
Hi guys. Always welcome to have you along. Okay, so
Oh, talk about viewers. I have a little shout out. Shout out to Rosie. I met this lady Rosie yesterday. I bumped into her quite by chance, and she says, "I know you. You're on that show in the morning." And I says, "Well, what do you think of it?" "It's very interesting," she said.
yeah. Okay, Mike makes a point of two rubber stampers, Chris and Vance. But there we go. Right.
Yes.
You can make your view, and I would tend to agree with Mike. Yeah. Okay. So moving on. It is Tariff Tuesday.
Oh, we're gonna get murdered.
Right. So we're there's a couple of articles. I'm throwing these all kind of in together. On the theme of Tariff Tuesday, we've got this question about 30,000 Niagara jobs being potentially up at risk. Stock markets have already started to fall, and Ford's threat to cut off energy to the US.
Yeah, it's getting to be a real what show. As we all know, this is an illegal action by Trump. He is abrogating his own agreement, the USMCA, the greatest trade agreement ever created, in his own words. And this is the trade agreement in which we've been trading under. And I don't think anybody thought it was going to be this bad, because it was, after all, his own agreement that we're trading under. And I think the faster they get rid of Trump down there, the better it's going to be. I kind of expect that something's like, the guy's gone mad with his Zelensky thing, with these tariffs. He's going to add a lot of pain to the U.S. economy. Stock markets are already plunging. We'll see what happens in the long run, but I don't anticipate this guy going to be able to last. Sooner or later, his the spineless Republicans have got to be able to stand up to him. Sooner or later, those spineless sycophants in the Republican Party have going to have to say, you know what, you're a weirdo. You got to go.
Yeah. Okay. So their prediction here is 30,000 Niagara-based jobs could be at risk.
Yes, and that's sadly that is when we have agricultural product. Well, on Paul's show, he interviewed the guy from Hamel Machine, and he makes products and manufactures products that he sells to the United States. And when when Paul asked him about whatever plans they have, he says, "Well, that's pretty much on hold because of this tariff stuff. It'll hurt us bad, this tariff stuff." So we have it from the horse's mouth. A producer right here in Ontario, or in Niagara, that knows the tariffs are going to be bad for his own particular company, or could be potentially.
Yeah, potentially, and it's like everybody's been on tenterhooks for a month, um, and now we're on tenterhooks again, and for example, Andrea Horvath is even she's headed down to Washington today till Friday, seeing talking about talking with manufacturers and manufacturing jobs, and again, so Andrea Horvath being the mayor of Hamilton, of course.
Yeah, let's make this very clear too. Like, Stelco belongs to a U.S. company.
Yep.
It's U.S. owned.
Yeah.
DeFasco at one time was Russian owned. I don't know who owns it now, but these are U.S. companies, and the U.S. investments.
I think DeFasco has been owned by a raft of people, including, as I understand it, an Indian-owned steel manufacturer.
May have been, but these are global conglomerates, and they don't really look at borders much anyway.
Oh, I know.
Look at investment opportunity. We reported here that Alcoa CEO was talking about. I think it was a CEO, but anyway, spokesman for Alcoa said that their investments went to places like Australia, Quebec, and Iceland to make the aluminum that they need for American manufacturing, because it was easier and cheaper. And then when they take the raw aluminum, then they make something out of it, then sell that and make profit. Seriously, like we have to import bauxite in order to make the aluminum. It's kind of like putting a tariff on the bauxite that comes into the country so you can make aluminum. That would be dumb, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? It would just be dumb. Like, I don't know. But anyway, the Trump continues to blab on about the fentanyl that comes into the country from Canada. He never says how much or how much. He just says, and it comes in from Canada, and it comes in from Canada too, and all that. It's such a minor amount. And we've done everything. See, this is what happens when you placate a bully. So we did everything he asked us to do. We strengthened the border. We come down pretty hard on fentanyl. We asked also that they come down on the guns and stuff that are coming into our country. The guns and drugs that coming into our country from their side. We want a reciprocal thing here. We think it's probably pretty good that this happened. We also probably could thank him for us beefing up our defense spending, which he was quite right about. But everything else, he's right off the rails. This is going to damage the economy. His position in Ukraine is to make his U.S. ally Ukraine weak and hand it over to Russia, where he set in and had a resolution in tandem with Russia. U.S., Russia, and North Korea stood together at the UN, and now he's going to postpone the weapons going into Ukraine because he wants to force Zelensky out of the picture. And the guy is the emperor with no clothes kind of thing. He's a potentate right now.
Well, Mike asked an interesting question. Have they managed to tear down the provincial tariffs? And the answer is no. Have they ordered all buildings to be made of Canadian steel? Yeah, they should. Right. Okay, so Scott McEachran saying close the Welland Canal to ships headed to Cleveland, Toledo, Detroit, etc.
Hey, wait a minute, though. If you do that, you hurt yourself as well. What you got to do is you got to take measures that hurt them more than you. If you shut down the Welland Canal, what are you going to do? And also, if you do things like that, you're going to let's say if you shut off all the power coming from Quebec into the United States, you just shut it off. that gives them a reason to invade. That gives them a reason to go invade and go and take that power plant, because now you have threatened the security of their country.
Well,
Anything
he's the next one. He's saying have 100 MTO officers stopping and inspecting US trucks at random on the shortcut from Niagara to Sarnia to save time going around the Lake Erie on the way to the Midwest.
The problem here is this sounds all good. It sounds good. But are you going to cut your nose off to spite your face? What you need to do, you don't want to jeopardize, or you want to jeopardize Canadian jobs as the least and American jobs as the most.
Yeah.
Basically,
we were talking about
when Trump says that, or when Ford says he's going to cut off all nickel supplies. Well, that might be a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
That's nickel. And he says he'll stockpile it. But how long can he stockpile before he has to sell it to someone, because those jobs are essential. Yeah, if you can find another market for that nickel,
it's like, for example, how many thousands of people work in McDonald's or Subway, right? And pretty well, you can't stop going to McDonald's or Subway because they're American companies. The local people will suffer in our local economy, and those McDonald's or Subway buy Canadian meat, Canadian vegetables, Canadian bread, Canadian this and that and the other, and that's thousands of Canadian jobs that are relied upon by those American-owned, American-owned companies that are essentially franchises in Canada.
Yeah, well, steel too. We make certain kinds of steel here in Hamilton. We make a lot of plate steel, but specialty steels come from other places. If you want to start putting up I-beams or I-beams or columns of steel, I don't think we may produce some of that up in Algoma, but the steel goes back and forth. We sell plate to them; they may sell I-beams to us.
Yeah.
You can't turn your manufacturing around and start taking a plate mill and start trying to construct I-beams or columns or what they call W columns and beams and that kind of thing. Beams. So they can't.
The other question
you can't quickly just retool that.
Yeah. The other question here is what Scott is saying here. Fentanyl is an excuse. It really is. It's nothing. For the amount of fentanyl that goes to the US, there's 100 times goes to Canada.
Yeah, we get more illicit, according to our own and their own. More drugs come from them into us. Basically, it passes through Trump says, okay, you're getting the chemicals from China and they're passing through Canada and coming here. Well, the same thing is coming from Mexico is passing through here to the United States to come to us. A lot of illegal guns and stuff. That you'll never get Trump to hear that. It's going to be hard to get that message out into the U.S. because he has sort of exclusively got hold of the narrative. He could say anything and his party faithful will believe him. Nobody fact checks Donald Trump, and if anybody does, he comes down on them. The lies that he talked about how much money the U.S. has given to Ukraine is a big fat lie. It's about his claim is about 3 times what actually has been given to Ukraine. The $200 billion, how he the U.S. endorses us with $200 billion every year or something. That's a complete lie. So this guy never has any kind of facts to back him up. He just says anything. And if anyone asks him questions, they're banned from the press corps, or they won't get, they'll come down on him big time. So
Well, at one time, you go back to the 90s, and Canada was about 18, 19, 20% of US imports. China was about 3% of US imports. Mexico was about 6%. Currently, Mexico's about 15%, China 13%, and Canada 12%. So Canadian exports to the US have been slowly deteriorating over time.
Well, the U.S. has the advantage with us and always has had the
Yeah.
advantage. They sell more to us than we buy from them, except for oil.
Yeah.
They can't produce the amount of oil they need, so they have to buy it from somewhere. And the most convenient place to buy it is Canada.
And
As a matter
last week
of
he
fact,
was
we
talking
saw the
about
reopening of the XL pipeline.
Yeah, and exactly. So last week he was talking about the reopening of the pipeline. Yet, if we turn the tap off on that, nothing's coming through.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, indeed. So look, it's the basic. I don't know. He's being bully boy. He's thumping his chest. He likes the attention. He'll just keep saying more and more things that aren't true, and it's unbelievable how much. Like when you start commenting on Facebook on how many people eat it hook, line, and sinker. Anything he says, he is the hero. You know, he's going to be like. And it's also a very 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 unfortunate time that he has support in the Democrats who are so pathetic they can't stand up to him, and his own Republican senators and congressmen are terrified of him, so they won't say anything.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that right at the moment, stock markets are going down in the US, go down everywhere actually because of what the US is doing. But the US, of course, leads the stock market. So the question here is kind of what is going to be impacted by tariffs. So we've got things like delivery trucks, wire, computers, cars, telephones, broadcasting equipment, refined petroleum, crude petroleum, batteries, agricultural products, a whole raft of them.
Yeah, it's going to hurt us here.
Yeah.
We'll see how long it goes. Nobody knows what Trump's really. If the stock market plunges much more, he seems to be very sensitive to the impression that the stock market is an indication of the economy. So if the stock market plunges much more, he might relent. He'll give us some excuse. Everything I did is a success. Now I can lift some of the tariffs. We don't know yet. It's going to be almost impossible to charge tariffs on the car parts because they go back and forth. So they're going to have to be identified as having paid the tariffs once before they go back and come back again.
Yeah.
It's just it sounds odd that a part should go here, then should go there, and then should go here and there. But each different car plant specializes in different things.
Yeah, but it's a case again of bolts are made in certain factories. They get shipped to other factories that make parts. And those parts then become part of other parts. So you've kind of got parts that become parts that become parts that become parts.
Exactly.
Because there's more than 50,000 unique pieces to a car. So those parts,
one place may make the pistons, the other place may make the engine, another place might make the water pump, and they put it all together. So you got a Mexican water pump, you got a casting that came from the United States, but the engine is assembled in Canada.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah, and maybe even engine the pistons are manufactured in China or something. We don't know.
No, they're not. But the pistons are made here, but the rough piston is first made in, I think, Ontario, and then the piston is then refined.
I was just using that as an example about how they come from multiple parts of the world, right?
Yeah. So One American manufacturer says we just won't pay it. We'll see. We'll see. Trump's running out of ideas. He said he was going to fix the war with Ukraine in a day. Well, he can't do that with Putin. He can't force Putin's hand. He can force Ukraine's hand because Ukraine is completely dependent. So if Trump says he's going to fix this war, the only way he can do it is force Ukraine into a peace.
Yeah.
And you can and because he holds the cards, just like he says, I've got the cards, you don't have any cards. You do what I tell you. And we're turning our back on you, brother. We're turning our back on you. You're going to give us your rare earth minerals. You're going to hand over this land and everything to Putin. Putin's my pal. I'm more interested in China now, and you got to pay reparations, buddy.
So our American friend Nancy is saying, "Good morning. We made it till Tuesday. Nice to see your smiling faces early in the morning."
Yes. Hi, Nancy. How's it going? How's the weather down there?
Not much different to us, I don't think. She's only a couple 100 miles away.
Yeah, but she's right on the lake, so
right on the lake. Yep. I know. All right. 1 pound of fentanyl in January. Trump would tariff no matter what.
Hey, if there was a thimbleful of, he would call it a national emergency.
He would. That's for sure. Flooded. Trump has flooded the U.S. and they're going to crash. USA is broke. Trump is desperate. This is dangerous.
Yeah, the big problem is the U.S. is broke. And what isn't said, unfortunately, well, you hear it a lot that the United States is desperately in debt, and if it comes to wars or another pandemic or something like this, it could sink the U.S. prospects quite a bit for quite a long period of time. The U.S., Canada, all the Western democracies have allowed themselves to get into horrible debt, and we now have the prospect of a possible war. We don't have the money to fight a war or even. But
at the moment, UK and France have who already said they're going to be sending troops to Ukraine. I'm not sure it's a wise idea, but apparently other governments are looking at supporting. Dave? Oh, damn. Okay. Other governments are looking at supporting this. I don't know what's going on here with Dave. Let's see if he returns in a minute or so. Where were we? Okay. So the other question here is actually whether Doug Ford, right. According to the National Post, Doug Ford's saying it will shut down manufacturing. Ontario is going to stop nickel shipments and to US if tariffs are imposed. Here we go. So Doug Ford is already talking about shutting down manufacturing and stopping nickel shipments to the US if tariffs are imposed. He's already talked about turning off power.
Yeah, or putting a surcharge on that power.
Yeah,
I would caution him not to do that. There are certain things you're going to hurt people.
Yeah,
you don't want to hurt people so much. You want to hurt maybe their industries or something like that. But yeah, I mean, we're going to get hurt.
Well, you know what they
we don't really want to, if you shut off the power, you're going to put a lot of ordinary Americans in a rough point. You don't want to do that. You got to think what you want to do is shut off maybe power to their industries or something like that, but not to their homes.
Yeah, what you needed to do was a month ago. Had they gone ahead with the tariff stuff a month ago, then you needed to shut the power off for Super Bowl Sunday. Right? That would have been the demonstration you needed. Just a demonstration. This is what we can do.
Yeah, but basically, no, you don't want to do that at all. I don't agree at this point to shut off power because it's the average American household that you are going to hurt. If you could direct your power to cut off from industries or something like that, or even the stock market floor, if you could cut off the power to the stock market floor in New York. But what you don't want to do, the average American, in his house, in his or her house, you don't want to make, and particularly in the wintertime. No, it's not a good idea. I don't think Doug Ford's smart that way. Putting a surcharge on that power is probably a better way to go, asking for more power for it. But all manner of now, Doug Ford has says they're going to use every tool in their toolbox, and that's a good thing to do. Basically, to look at all aspects. To stockpile nickel might be a way, but you have to also remember you got a real nutcase down there in Trump, and he might send troops up here if you shut off the power. He might send troops up to go to the power plants because it's a it's a threat to their national security. Everything he's doing now, all these tariffs, those particularly aluminum and steel, he's made those threats because they're a threat to the security of the United States. Nickel is very important to the military, and if he shuts off nickel, Trump can say, "Well, that's a threat to our national security," so he can send troops up. This guy is look. This guy's on the teetering of. He's Caligula, basically. He's Nero and Caligula. He's on the edge. He's pounding his chest and he's acting like the emperor with no clothes. He's you got to be very careful with this guy. You don't know what he's going to do. He doesn't know what he's going to do.
That's actually the worst aspect of this, isn't it?
Yeah, and the Republicans are terrified of him.
Yeah.
So you have a potentate. You have a dictator wannabe, and he really is like Caligula and Nero. Every time he opens his mouth,
well, I think
an emperor.
I think actually at the moment, if you're in the House of Representatives or in the Senate, you only come to work with one thing: a rubber stamp in your hand, right?
Yeah,
and that rubber stamp.
You're a Republican. You're a Republican.
Yeah,
you've got
that rubber stamp says agreed, and you kind of go stamp, 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 and that's your entire day's job, stamping agreed on the top.
Yeah, they are very, very. They're like they take any excuse to get on to Trump's side on anything. They don't have. They start having an opinion about Ukraine, and then suddenly, well, Zelensky's really, really disrespectful. He didn't wear a suit. Did you see that? Zelensky didn't wear a suit. He's super disrespectful. Well, the reason why he doesn't wear a suit because he wears what he does in solidarity with his soldiers.
Yeah.
If you look back when he got elected back in peace times, he always had a suit on. As soon as the war started, he started to dress as he did in solidarity with his soldiers. And he always sports a little bit of beard because what do soldiers do? They don't have time to shave a lot of times, right? So they're gonna, that's symbolism. He's trying to tell the soldiers he's in solidarity with them. I agree with that.
And the other thing,
Trump can't handle it because he upstaged him. People look at Zelensky more than him, and it frosts him.
Yeah, the other thing, of course, about the Republican senators and congressmen is they've become somewhat like Winston Smith in 1984. Stamp.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Before he became conscious of what he was doing, of course.
That basically you're talking about the Orwellian
novel, yes.
And because right now the Republicans and the Republican press, basically, or the right wing press like Fox, are self-censoring themselves, and and trying to find different ways. Right now, it seriously, the way Trump views the world, and if Trump tells the Republicans that white is black, then they're all going to say white is black. Notice none of them are allowed to have an opinion on the 2020 election. Have they? None of them are allowed to. All they can say is, when they say, "Do you think the election was fixed?" All they repeat is, "Well, Biden was the president after that. Was it fixed? Was it a fair election?" They won't answer that question.
Yeah.
Nance won't. None of the people that come forward for the cabinet positions or whatever they have, except will not answer the question. They will not have an opinion on it.
By what I've been hearing, LCBO workers worked until midnight last night to remove American products off the shelves.
Yep, here we go. Here we go again. Like, I think probably withholding nickel might have more of an effect in the long run. But the car auto parts going back and forth, that's going to be a nightmare to try to figure out what kind of tariff is going to go on.
And yeah, absolutely. Right. It's terrifying.
And like I said before, like even Ford, who has tried to source as many parts as it can, 80% of its parts come from the U.S. The cars that it makes and sells in the U.S. Comes from the U.S. But even them, they have to have 20%. And the Ford CEO said that they worked with the USMCA. In other words, once it was signed, and it was signed by Trump, they figured, okay, this is going to stay this way. And when Trump got back into office, they figured, okay, well, this is his deal, so he won't mess with this too much.
Yeah. So they carried out USMCA rules as part of NAFTA, the new NAFTA agreement. Karen's suggesting that the hydro bosses flick the switch periodically to remind the US that where their hydro comes from.
Well, we like seriously, like
the potential is it would cause a cascade failure like we had on the Eastern Seaboard in 2003.
Well, 1.5 homes. Like, look, what you don't want to do is go after the average American citizen in his home, in his or her home. I don't think shutting off the power is a good idea, because the average American citizen had nothing to do with this, basically, and they're in for tough times too. What you want to do is target industry or something like that. You don't want to target the average American citizen.
Well, I think what we've got to do is we've got to invite the army in here. They've got to line up along River Road with their rifles aimed at the US, ready to fire.
Well, yeah. The only thing is, they can find the rifles, but they can't find the ammunition. Remember, this is the Canadian Armed Forces.
I know. So, but hey, it's only for show. It's only for show, Dave.
Well, they're probably going to have to dig into the storage areas and find some Korean War leftovers, because I don't think they could even suit up enough guys.
Yeah. Well, maybe we need to do something about that, eh?
Yeah. If they say, okay, well, we got to defend the border against Americans coming in, and let's get our soldiers. All right, everybody. Where's the tanks? They're in the repair shop. But I found a bazooka. Do you still have that World War II hand grenade, Fred? Yeah, I'll bring that.
Yeah, but you see, as anybody, do you remember the British World War II sitcom about World War II called Dad's Army?
No, I don't see that. No,
it was a thing about what the Home Defense Forces would be doing. So this is this is Dad's response to old men who were fighting on the home front if they needed to.
Well,
and they'd always have this kind of, this is how a grenade works. You pull the pin and, Jonesy, don't do that.
Well, I think here, like it's almost as bad as if they start coming over with drones. We don't have any, so we're gonna just have to get our old sup with camels out of storage and see if we can put a little computer in it and see if we can get our own drone going.
Yeah.
Well, really, seriously, like our tanks and stuff, we are so far behind. We have to start them with a pull rope. They get that tank going.
And hey, who are we going to order our tanks from? America.
I think we should order them from China. That would really frost them.
Trouble is, I can imagine what's going on. Okay, let's align the guns against America, and put your code into the computer, and it's a Chinese computer, and they go, ooh.
Yeah.
No, I said America. No. No, America. No.
Well, yeah.
We've got to laugh. We've got to laugh. We really do have to laugh.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hoping pretty soon that the Republicans get a backbone, but I can't see it happening for another few months. He's got about 6 months before he breaks too many things. But on the positive side, like, I mean, there is a bit of a silver lining. He's an idiot. He's ignorant. He doesn't. He's just a fool. But if what he has done for us is united us. What he has done for us is we are now in serious talks about finding other trade partners and trading with each other.
We need to be trading with Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, UK,
Brazil, anywhere. Yeah, but we also have to be trading everywhere. With each different.
Not Russia, not China.
Provinces. We trade with provinces.
Trade with our own provinces. Yes, cut that down and cut those tariffs down. Right.
Well, yeah, that's one of Poilievre's talking points in his new rebranded campaign, is to get the provinces together and having this trade between them again. We can make $100 billion or something, or save $100 billion or something if we trade with our different provinces. We've always just taken the easy way out and traded straight south instead of across the country.
Yeah,
we have more protections against each other than we have against the United States,
which is crazy, which is utterly crazy. It really is.
Well, it's for the same reason. You want to protect your own little industry. If you got a little steel mill and Ontario makes cheaper steel than Nova Scotia will put up a trade barrier to keep that steel mill there.
Yeah, well, yeah, but again, Ontario steel. Even if you're making Ontario steel at 10% cheaper than local steel in another province, shipping it there is going to cost you that 10%, surely.
There's all kind. Yeah, well, the shipping, we don't have a united shipping process across Canada.
No, we don't.
Rules and regulations for trucking and shipping.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why we do is to restrict the amount of materials that come back and forth across the border. So when we have a free trade with the United States and we don't have a free trade with ourselves, it's kind of dumb, isn't it?
It is very dumb. Yeah.
And that's so we feel that we have to protect ourselves from each other rather than protect ourselves from the U.S. And look where that's got us. Look where that's got us right now.
Yeah.
Once you get a rogue president in there that now wants to victimize rather than support the fellow democracies, he wants to victimize them. Yeah. And we're in a tough spot here right now. But that's what's going to happen right now. So we'll have to see how this develops. A lot of people say that Trump is just using this as a precursor to a new trade deal. Since the trade deal we have is his trade deal, I don't know what he wants to try to make it even sweeter for the U.S. somehow. But I think he's just throwing spaghetti. I think he's just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. and what
Yeah.
happened.
I think there's actually. I think he has a. I'm well. There are two thoughts out there. One thought is that he has a bigger picture in mind, right? What that bigger picture is, I don't know. I'm not so sure of right now. He talked. He talked about unification with Canada. He's talked about unification with Greenland. And um, are those kind of concepts? And you see, I have to then wonder, kind of, does the United States become everything between Greenland? He wants to also protect the Panama Canal. Is his bigger vision in the longer term Panama to Greenland as being the United States? Changes the whole picture of North America.
Well, the manifest destiny is becoming bigger, but the manifest destiny already existed the way the United States wants it. I can understand his angst about the Panama. When you have two Chinese companies at each different port, that is a potential problem. But remember, those Chinese companies were Hong Kong companies, and they were there prior to China taking over Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So there is a potential problem there. U.S. has 75% of it of the
Naturally so.
traffic. So of
Yeah,
course
naturally
it's
so.
essential. Of course, it's essential to U.S. security, and U.S. ships of war go through there, and of course that is essential to U.S. security. So
Yep.
definitely, the Panama Canal cannot go into the hands or be influenced by anyone else. Uh, definitely not. And so that's just a reality. Greenland, on the other hand, is a different thing. They want Greenland because all of a sudden they got minerals, but they've always wanted Greenland. They wanted Greenland way back in the 40s. They wanted to buy it there because they could see that as a potential protection area where they could protect themselves from China.
It's a big buffer zone because, let's face it, even with climate change, it's like there's not going to be a lot of people suddenly moving to Greenland, are there?
It's not that. It's the mining resources, of course.
I know.
But especially the protection. What protection? But Denmark and the United States are all part of NATO, and the United States had a very large military base there, and they still have a scientific base there. And they have the perfect right to expand that base because they've already made the treaty with Greenland long ago to put military assets there. So Trump wants to own it. He wants these simple victories, and he goes after the weak persons. He figured he could muscle little Denmark into handing over Greenland because he's the big tough guy. He gets on the phone with the Denmark prime minister and yells at her and threatens her, and it didn't work. He yells at, so he goes for victories. So in his mind, calling the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America is a huge victory. He really stuck it to Mexico. Take that. That's
Yeah.
in his
and most of the rest of the world over the Gulf of America is just killing themselves laughing about it.
Yeah, well, that's what he thinks is a big victory.
It's been the biggest joke on Facebook for ever since the presidency started, right? And hey, do you know about the Gulf of Australia?
Yeah, that's the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, that's the Gulf of Australia. Well, there you go. Come on. That's how stupid this has become, right?
Yeah, it's getting petty and childish.
Yeah,
and you get the idea that he is petty and childish, and you always thought that, but you figure maybe he could bring himself around. The problem is there's no controls over this guy right now because, like I said before, the Republicans are so terrified of him. We don't know what's going to happen here. A lot of people say this is just bluff and bluster and him hammering his chest and playing good cop, bad cop kind of thing.
But he's the good cop and the bad cop, all embodied in one person.
Yeah, he's not going to share that role. But you find striking reversals in people like Rubio. Rubio has called Putin a monster, a butcher, a war criminal. He has demanded that the United States protect the Ukraine from the aggression of Russia. And now he's done a complete reversal and says, okay, well, it's up to Ukraine to do what Trump says. So he's lost his spine completely. His whole ethics has gone, and his whole morality is now suffering. I don't know how long he'll be able to take that, his own character delusions, before he comes back to reality. But there you have it. You have a guy who was vehemently supporting Ukraine in all aspects, vehemently against the monster Putin, and now does a complete reversal. That's what's happening in the Republican Party right now.
Yeah. Okay, then the other question that we have to also consider is that Trump's pausing military aid to Ukraine.
Well, yeah, sure. He wants Zelensky out of the picture. Zelensky is the strongest voice for Ukraine. He knows it. So he wants him out of the picture. So he's going to make a lot of pressure on Ukraine. They want to force an election on him so that Trump and Putin can put their man in and control him. Zelensky won't bow to Trump or Putin, and Trump and Putin don't like that. So they want their own guy in. They're going to find somebody to go take his place, and that way they can control the situation. Just like when the Brits and the United States put the Shah in control of Iran. That's what they want to do. They're looking for a puppet.
Well, and the president, president's making it clear that he's been focused on peace. But I'm not so sure. Personally, I'm not so sure that replacing Zelensky does that.
Well, he bragged to everybody that he could negotiate a deal in one day. Well, he hasn't been able to do that. And when he goes to talk to Russia, Russia's not going to bend. Who's going to bend? The only way he can get a deal and get a feather in his cap and say that he brought peace, there's only one person that he can force, and that's the weakest of the party, and that's Ukraine. Ukraine is the most vulnerable. The Ukraine has done everything the United States has wanted. Ukraine has been an ally of the United States, has fought the war, the U.S. has backed the Ukraine since 2014, including Trump years, given them weapons, given them everything they needed, until Trump says suddenly, oh, guess what? Zelensky is a dictator. He's got to go, and the Russians are right, and I'm going to stop those weapons. So imagine that's complete reversal of American policy.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to be able to trust the United States for any deal they've ever made now.
That's a big problem.
Who's going to trust Trump? Because one day yes and one day no.
Yeah.
He's a chameleon.
That's the problem, isn't it? It's like, Ukraine has been reliant upon that deal with the US in order to stand its ground.
Well, the fact that Trump is able to waffle all over the place and keep changing his mind tells us something there is very wrong. Where is the Congress? Where are the Republicans? Where is the Senate? Saying, hey, we have something to say about this. We have something to say. It's our money. We're the ones that grant the money. We're the ones that make that policy. You have to come to us. But they are not, because they're terrified of the guy. Until the American government starts doing what it's supposed to do. You have three tiers of government, three main tiers there. You have the executive, the Congress, and the Senate. And if you're allowing the executive to run rampant like that, then the democracy's not working. And I'm afraid, where is the spot?
We're back to Winston Smith and the rubber stamping of Congress, right?
Yes, exactly. Like, they're afraid of him. And when Trump says white is black, they say, oh, yeah, white is black. Before, Ukraine was the good guy, but now it's bad guy because Trump says so. So beforehand, Ukraine is the shining knight fighting for democracy for his country. right up until Biden leaves the office. Now Trump comes in and says Zelensky's a dictator, he's the bad guy, and he started the war. And all you Republicans, you better fall in line and say the same thing, which they have done, including Rubio, the spineless one.
Yeah, former Ukrainian Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk said that Zelensky has nothing to apologize for after the US president's White House confrontation, but it's a free world and we must, basically he's saying it's very difficult to win the war without the US.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard. One good thing about it, Europe is stepping up. Europe was too heavily reliant
I'm not so sure that. Yeah, we'll talk about that some more. I sent you. UK and France have already sending peacekeepers to Ukraine, but I'm not sure of the wisdom of that.
Yeah, they're sending peacekeepers before there's peace, which may suck them into the conflict.
Yeah.
I can't really see in order. They're going to have a lot of support from the EU, and they're going to have to send the EU and build defenses along the Dnieper River. At least they're going to have to build nearly impenetrable defenses so that the USS or the Russians will not. It will be way too costly even for them to move in. Right now, they have a huge swath of territory. They're not going to give it up. They may give up some of it for the Kursk part. Anyway, whatever, there's been a lot of criticism of how the Ukrainians have run the war. But remember, they're in a desperate situation. They're a country of 40 million fighting a war against one that was 150 million.
Yeah.
And they gave up their nuclear weapons and with securities from Russia, UK, and US, and those securities really didn't add up to much, did they?
They added up to nothing, didn't they, really, at the end of the day? Yeah.
So basically, what you find here with Trump is every American policy that's been up to this point, if he doesn't like it, he doesn't oblige by it.
Yeah.
Oh, we had that treaty. I don't want that treaty anymore.
Yeah, and he's talking
about the trade agreement with Canada that I made. Well, I don't like it anymore.
Yeah, and he's talking about some treaty that happened in 1900 dot, and invalidating that. Well, it's a foundation. It's a foundation of relationships between the two nations.
I don't know. We're that's it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll see what's going to happen. He's got to go. I hope there's kind of like a palace coup of some kind. He's obviously a little bit unhinged. He is really not the leader for the 21st century. I didn't think he was going to be this bad. I thought they could kind of hold their nose for 4 years until the Democrats or even the Republicans can rebuild and find a more reasonable leader. But that's not going to happen. So right now, we're going to have to suffer through the first year at least of Trump's ramblings and chaos. He likes things in chaos because other people are smarter than him. So if he puts everything in chaos, he still has a chance to influence what he wants.
Yeah. And, the thing about the White House pictures, and I didn't actually see what was spoken in that particular meeting. I didn't watch the live TV part of it, but the whole thing looked as if it was Trump dictating to Zelensky, the way we do things is, and you must fall into line because, you know what I mean?
Well, even that thing about the suit, prior to that, one of the reporters says something about his suit, and Trump says, "Oh, I love it the way he's dressed. It's good. I like the way he's dressed and all that." So it was somebody else a little later on picked up on that suit idea. Now we all know why Zelensky wears the clothes that he does. He's in solidarity with his soldiers. He
Yes.
doesn't completely shave. He has a trim beard, usually a closely
Yep.
trimmed beard, very much like a soldier would on the line.
Well, and
And he
comparisons,
wears fatigues. He's in solidarity with
yeah,
his soldiers. It's great symbolism.
and
And that whole
comparisons
idea that they're disrespectful because he doesn't have a suit, is that all you can say?
and comparisons have been made with Winston Churchill when Winston Churchill was appealing for Americans to join the Second World War. When he came to the White House, he was wearing a military uniform
Yes,
in
indeed. Yeah.
respect of the people who were on the front line, because that is what Churchill did in World War II. He
Yeah,
wore,
use symbolism, and they're very effective.
yeah,
And Trump resents it because it takes the spotlight off of him.
yeah, and
Yeah, well, we got to get this child out of the White House. I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't know. I got to
well,
lay out. Next time,
it's
if he does visit Canada, maybe we can put a trap of Kentucky Fried Chicken and a Diet Coke somewhere, and when he goes to get it, we can drop the trap on him.
yeah, well, you can kind of think that one all you like.
Well, we can't ransom him because they don't want him back once we got him.
We're in trouble if we grab him. Yeah,
We're gonna have to feed him some more Kentucky Fried and Diet Coke. I can see that now. We're going to hold Trump for ransom now that we've captured him, and the U.S. negotiates. Well, you better give him as much Kentucky Fried Chicken and Diet Coke as he wants, or there could be war.
yeah. All right, I think we can call it quits at that point.
Okay, no further ado, I bid you adieu. Everyone, get ready to ride the rough roller coaster. We can stick this out. We've fought wars before. We were in the First World War 3 years before the U.S. got into it. We were in the Second World War over 2 years before the Americans finally got into it. We fought for democracy before. We fought for ourselves. It's time to sort of keep calm and carry on.